This is not a normal podcast. Welcome to this real collective inquiry into what patriarchal sex is, how both men and women hold that paradigm in place, and how we can be all living beyond it together. My name is Devashi Shakti. I've been working with clients privately for 30 years and have been a leading guide in women's sovereignty with the Tigress Path for decades. You're invited here to listen in on these conversations I'm having with interesting people from many countries and cultures around the world, highlighting women and men who are contributing the needed change and education to go beyond the patriarchal paradigm in sex, intimacy, and relating. The spell is already broken, patriarchy is done, and we are co-creating the new paradigm right now. This episode explores responsibility, power, dominance, BDSM, and more. And I know that some people in my world freak out a little bit around BDSM language and themes, but I really encourage everyone to keep an open mind because there is a lot of value here. In BDSM, the exploration is not shamed, curiosity is welcome, and in it there is deep acceptance of sexual energy. And there are so many keys that are practiced in kink and BDSM communities, particularly around expectation, communication, and consent and boundaries. Developing this is way more likely to happen in those environments, in those communities, than in regular relationships. So that's what I mean, that there's a lot to learn. And today's guest, Master Joshua, has had a big life. He started very young in New York City. He was a US Marine, he was in law enforcement, and then in domination and kink, and is now an expert practitioner and mentor. Shadow work is part of this conversation, and I personally really appreciate those facilitating shadow work when they really investigate themselves in an ongoing way because they can hold it. And like Joshua, who learnt through trial by fire, not just from theory, but from experience and self-exploration. We also talk about masculinity and how to develop the real thing of embodied self-respect and a man's relationship with responsibility. Joshua very beautifully describes feeling blessed with responsibility. So some Spider-Man wisdom in there for us all. And another thing I really loved about this episode is how Joshua's relationship with faith, with spirituality changed due to his deep learning experiences with BDSM. So later on in this conversation, we're talking about transcendental experiences. And I want to say that I see many pathways to having a relationship with God, not only one way, and most definitely it doesn't have to be through prescribed religion. And let's face it, all the religions are patriarchal religions in order to be a good person. And one of the things I hope that gets to happen from sharing this episode is that those who are playing with polarity concepts, whether man or woman, especially around male leadership and the amount of confusion going on out there with that, and in turn, feminine submission as well, that those that are in that exploration, particularly if they're doing it more from the conceptual place without the depth of embodied learning that someone like Joshua or myself has to bring, I really recommend learning from those that hold embodied polarity wisdom, so different to just the conceptual understandings about it. And being able to find who these teachers are, how you can contact them, and what they offer and what's available is something that I really hope gets transmitted through this beautifully honest conversation.
I've been having sex since I was 12 though, and that's going on 35 years. And it's significance because my relationship with sex was about power at a point and about not being able to be abandoned. Because if I'm so good at it, you won't leave me because it's so powerful. Uh, and it was a miss. I was misled in what the relationship of power and sex meant since I was young, culturally, and
Mm-mm.
I carry that for decades.
Yeah, this is going to be even more interesting than I thought maybe. So, Master Joshua, thank you for meeting with me on this podcast. And, I was looking for someone that is a voice of wisdom and who is an experienced professional dom like yourself, and that you've been in it for 15 years. Um, but what you were just telling me about then is that how you came to it, or your earlier experiences of sex and power, um, probably brought you to exactly where you are and the kind of man that you've become. And and just to be clear, like one of my main motivations for inviting you to this was hoping that you would shed some light and share some wisdom from your, real experience in domination of what it actually is and how it is done well. And this is a way to speak to the people that are lost in the what I call pseudo-spiritual community in playing
Mm,
polarity and really not understanding um, how to do it without coercion and manipulation and the patriarchal attitudes that have not been investigated underneath it. And when I saw you sharing your videos that you do on social media, I found myself resonating with literally every single one that I saw. And it's kind of rare to feel that much resonance. So I knew I had to bring you on. So thank you so much for being.
Devashi, thank you so much for having me on here. I really appreciate the opportunity. And from when we connected the first time, and the conversation now before we hit record, it's like I really enjoy taking my experiences into different arenas because it's like it's universal. I think power exists everywhere in every relationship,
Yeah.
and either we're conscious of it or we're not conscious of it. But it doesn't make it any less present. And it's like once I became aware of it, did it become my responsibility to learn how to do it in a way that introduced life as opposed to diminishing life, right? And it's like, what does that mean? Because that sounds very airy fairy, right? It's like essentially doing the right thing matters all the time. And building my relationship with intuition is very important so that I know if what I'm doing is self-serving or serve or in service of.
Yes. Yes.
So
And
thank you
and
for being here. Thank you for letting me be here.
my pleasure. So Joshua, your earlier experiences of sex sounded like you were working out a lot of things inside of you, as everyone is. And please tell me more, but I got the impression that you were in a power over dynamic to maybe compensate for something going on inside of you. And then, you later came to professionally properly explore the role of domination with a lot of integrity and emotional intelligence, from what I can tell. So maybe you could describe, if you're willing, your earlier experience and where that was coming from and why it was playing out like that.
So yeah, absolutely. So growing up in New York City, I was born in '78, so I'm a child of the '80s and the '90s here, where the influence was in order to be a man, you had to have a lot of sex. And as a middle child, I was invisible, right? So it's like I couldn't wait to get up and get out of the house. So in order to do that, I had to be a man. And so the pursuit of sex began. And what's wild is it evolved over time because I was married by 18 with my first wife, and I went into the Marines, and it became a statistic where
Wow.
she wanted more of the money, and the divorce came, and then the family court system got introduced. And it was
Mm,
in that time where, because I'm not an athlete, and I'm not a student of academia. Like I don't like school is very difficult for me. Late age diagnosed ADHD, and then I did a lot of things start to make sense from that point on. Uh, but that was like 3 years ago that I got diagnosed with it. And when I heard that and I started to look at the way it all operates, it all started to make sense. But by then I was already 30 something years down the road. So what I didn't have athleticism. I wasn't tall enough to be a basketball player, and I wasn't smart enough to want to go to college. But sex was, and sexuality and my relationship to it and how I was able to hold space with it started early. And that gave me power, gave me knowledge, gave me wisdom, knowledge at this point. And so I became the guy that people would come to for advice and for guidance. And I was creating space for people to be okay just the way they are since I was 12, since I was 13, right? So,
that is really, really young, Joshua.
yeah, like I have a nephew who's 12, and looking at him, I'm like, wow, what a difference. Like who I thought I was to what
Mm,
12-year old means. It's like it's crazy. It's
yes.
crazy. I have a whole intention now around education and sex education that it just isn't being taught the way it needs to be taught because this is still it's not new, it's still happening, and it's happening more commonly because it's what's celebrated, and it's like that's the wrong message. But I didn't know that until a few years ago. So in this time going through family court and feeling disempowered and fear of rejection, fear of abandonment and neglect, I my intention with sex was to become so good at it that a person couldn't leave. And it was almost like a weaponization of sex where
Huh.
I would be in control of who stays and who goes because of the relationship with sex. And this was in my 20s. And I was very angry. I was very angry. And I was
Mm,
very afraid. And now that was happening with my close relationships. Everything else outside, I wasn't worried about losing because it was friends and family, and I didn't have that same type of intimate slash fear of that closeness, aside from whoever I was intimate with. So there was this push pull there, right? Because externally in all these other relationships, I was the man who I said I was. But inside these relationships, I was lying and I was cheating.
mm,
And that led me for about 2 decades. And what's tough about it is professionally, I was I was there 100%. I was working with clients and I was watching them take their authenticity and move throughout the world. And I would reflect on why couldn't I do this in my own personal relationships?
uh,
Like, what was the barrier? What was it? And it's something that I'm still working on today. Like, I have a deeper understanding, and it does come back down to neglect and ADHD and fear of rejection and lack of self-value and self-worth in areas that I mean, so much of my identity was built on sex that
yes.
as my relationship and my body changes, what's going to happen in 5 years when I'm not Master Joshua, right? But I'm like, I'm tired,
Uh,
right? And it makes me question, who am I, right? Because that's still something I struggle with today. So much of my life was built on providing and sex as energy exchange that at this point in my life, I'm still trying to figure out what do I want to do on a Friday night when I have nothing going on,
mm.
right? Now, in my early 30s, my late 30s, wow, time goes by. In my late 30s, I had a big breakup, and it was an ugly breakup. It wasn't even ugly, but the cancellation that came from it was ugly. And she came out swinging, and it happened right after the Me Too movement, which the Me Too movement was super necessary. After
Yes.
that, the believe the victim approach came, and that kind of muddied the waters because people weren't asking for information. And the Me Too movement had to happen. Once the integrity of the questioning stopped, it became a shit show. And I was part of that. Now, it took me a few years to really grasp the role that I played in that because I lied and I cheated. What I didn't do is I didn't leave when I should have because I knew when it was over, but I had nowhere to go. So I stayed.
Mm.
And it got to the point where it was like, fine, go do whatever you want. And I knew damn well that's not what that meant. But I got tired. And so I stopped asking. And so we stopped having conversations. And that's where the breakdown came. Now, what I learned from someone who was close to her, who became a friend of mine after, is women were using her to get to me. And I was openly accepting. And I was doing it all the time. I didn't realize that impact that it had on her until I heard her, what she shared with someone, a woman that I knew, who said, I knew you were using me to get to him. Years later, separate situation, and they came to me and said, you know, this is what's governing her. And when I heard that immediately, any type of defense I could have had, I just put down because it was like that is the biggest level of disrespect that I could
Mm.
have done. And it was like, no wonder she said the thing she said because that was so disgustingly humiliating, right? Because she
Mm.
was also older than me and I was doing it in the house and like I wasn't hiding it. I used ethics to circumvent the morals of the situation. You said yes, so I went and I did it. That's not what she meant.
Yeah.
And I think it was the universe's way of saying, listen, you've been cheating for 20 years. You've been afraid for 20 years. Stop. And I got the message. I got the
Wow.
message. And it was because in this time also with that breakup, I was able to reset and say, from this point on, I'm going to do what I walk my clients through doing in their personal relationships. I'm going to do it from this point moving forward. And that's what I did. Not perfectly, but that's what I did. And I watched everything fall into place. It was like, because I wasn't straight up lying, but what I would be was omitting information so that I
Yeah.
can manage people's emotions, so that people wouldn't be upset at me. I'd rather ask for permission, for forgiveness instead of permission in the past, right? It's like, how can I maneuver through this so that people's feelings don't get hurt and I can still get what I want? And
Yeah.
it's like, I'm just racking up a debt of karma, right? No matter how many good deeds I have, I'm still collecting on the parking tickets, right? It's like, and it's gonna come and it's gonna cash out on me.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it wasn't until I was able to practice what I preach on my most personal relationships that I had to unlearn my fears of rejection and abandonment. I had to stop looking at things through I'm going to use a victim lens. Like this is happening to me. It's like everything that's ever occurred to me is because I didn't have the courage to tell the truth. Everything in my life that's happened to me. And it's
You
like,
it's incredibly beautiful, might I say. And the fact that you can say the Me Too movement was necessary and what I'm understanding is it kind of got weaponized against you personally as well. The fact that you can say both of those things, it tells me a lot about you as a man.
thank you. Thank you. I tell you, that was one of the most difficult parts of in my life because it created a big vacuum. Everyone disappeared. No one asked any questions. And it was
Mm.
like the shit she said was heinous. It was like a 9-page manifesto of doom and gloom. And it was like, wow. And people believe this because that's what happened. I used to work for the feds. I was in law enforcement for like 10 years. So when this
Wow.
happened, I collected all my evidence. I had it all in folders in Google Drive. I had everything ready. and no one asked ever. One person, two people asked.
Oh my God.
And it was like years later, like 5, 6 years later. And, uh, you go into dark places. I went into dark places being isolated like that. The other cool thing about it, cool in air quotes, is my relationship with suffering got refined. And what I realized from that is suffering matters because at the end of it, I'll be able to help those who come after me suffering the same way. And that's sure enough what happened with this process of being canceled. Other people I know, some people I didn't, but they heard my story and they reached out to me. Joshua, how did you do it? Like, shit, I'm still in it, man. What do you mean do it? Like, I'm still drowning. Like, it still comes up from time to time, but it's not like if people aren't willing to ask for information, it's like you can go to hell. It's like at this point, integrity is what matters. I stake my claim. I claim what I've done. I won't take more than I did. But you gotta ask, right? So anyway, so these guys, men and women, reach out asking for just support. And I've talked people off the ledges in one form or another from what they've gone through. It's like, listen, dude, it hurts. It's gonna be like this for a minute. Let me ask you, what red flags did you not look at? Like to help them start taking accountability for their choices. And then the next part is, what role did you play?
Mm.
If you can't tell me, right? It's like I I'm here to support you. In support, we've got to empty out the fucking closet because that's the real part. We didn't get here in a vacuum, right? It's like something happened, and we need to be able to say, "I won't do that again," whichever way that looks. Because the road to recovery, to repair, is also important, and that's not what a lot of these spaces do, right? There's a
Yes.
lot of self-righteousness. There's a lot of holier than now, but it's like the point of it is to repair the rupture, educate, reform, right? If we're talking about transformative or reformative justice, it's like you actually got to put that shit into practice. You can't just talk about it.
Mm.
And it's led me into doing men's work. I've been doing men's work now for the last 3 years. And I do this reformative and transformative justice. And I've been doing it even when they were canceling me, and I was doing it for others who were going through issues, right? And it's like the point of all of this, whether it's spirituality, whether it's BDSM, there's a set of beliefs that a person is governed by, whether it's science or faith. It's like, are you walking the walk? And if not, why not? And it's not to shame, but it's to reflect. And once we
Yes.
bring that into awareness, it's like now you have the choice of action. And that goes for all of it. It's like the only what power is in power exchange is simply influence. Am I saying what I really mean? And am I able to hold space for what you really mean?
Mm. Mm. Yes. I mean, there's really no better guide than someone who has traversed their own underworld and turn the light on down there to guide someone else. And I just want to say for anyone listening that just say you're a little uncomfortable around the BDSM realm. Um, in the experience that I have, and I'd love you to share more of yours, Joshua. Uh, it's a place where so much honesty gets revealed, so much rawness, beyond all of the social masks, and maybe even deeper than what someone would reveal in therapy. Not that I'm saying it's a substitute for that.
I just made a video on that. I just made a
Did
video
you?
on that specific thing. I put it up 30 minutes ago. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So as you're sharing, what comes to mind is kink spaces come with a base level of expectation in communication. Meaning, if we're going to be here, the idea is open communication, right? In theory. So there's a lot of permission in these spaces that a lot of other spaces don't, because sex isn't, it's not shamed,
Mm,
and it's celebrated and it's accepted. And I
yeah.
say that in quotes as well because it's only as accepted and as permissible as the lowest common denominator in that space too, right? It's like you will always be exposed to some level of either ignorance or acceptance. And that's a fact of the matter too. It's like some spaces. I was speaking with someone in Sweden the other day, or Austria, and they were saying that they have different organizations of BDSM spaces in their community. And one of them is the older cis het white guy crowd that's like 50s and up, and they're very old guard. And then they have the Tantra BDSM people that is very sex heavy. And then you have the rope people who is just, it's just rope and it's like religion to them. So it's like these different pockets of people.
Yes.
And there's with all of it being said, that there's a baseline of expectation in communication and consent, right? So with that said, a lot of spaces just talk the talk, not necessarily walking the walk, meaning like any other space, you have the people who practice it and the people who talk about practicing it. It being consent and respectful behavior. Because like in any other establishment, any other area, you get people with enough time, they become complacent, they become comfortable, they become entitled. And
Mm.
that's something that's very real. Everyone wants to talk about the cool stuff. It's like there's two sides to this.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Yes. So you were in that relationship that you're referring to where she was obviously experiencing a power imbalance maybe the whole time with the role that you played as a professional dom in your work. And she processed that in the way that she did. Um, yes, but I want to get into your experience of, well, actually, about the abandonment that you revealed that's behind cheating, because I know that people would have told you so many things about their own psyche and sexuality that they might not feel comfortable to share elsewhere. So, like myself, you would have heard all kinds of dark secrets. And would you say that it's pretty common to people that cheat in relationship that the abandonment wound is almost always behind it? You've said it that was your experience, but how about when you observe others as well?
It's funny because I won't work with someone. I've probably had maybe one or two clients in the past where if they were in a relationship and they didn't and their partner didn't know, we can't work together. Right.
Yeah.
So it's like on the community level, everyone was calling everything poly, just like they do now. I mean, everything's poly, poly, poly. It's like to what degree and who knows and who doesn't know. So it's kind of really hard to put a finger on it besides my own relationship with it.
Yeah.
Uh, I was in a, and this is a hard one. I was in a training for this men's work about 2 years ago. And in one of the reflection questions that they asked, they said, think about a time where you were betrayed and write about it. And so I watch everyone, they're furiously in their notes. And I'm looking around, I'm like, man, I can't think of one person. And it dawned on me. You ever hear the analogy, if there's 10 people in the room, there's always an asshole. But if none of them are the asshole, you're the asshole. You're
Yes,
probably
yes.
the asshole. That happened with me, but with the word betrayal. I realized I was the one doing it.
Mm.
I never saw myself that way. I saw myself as just living. Let's just see what happens. I didn't
Right.
I didn't think about the word betrayal. And when that hit me, it was like a stiff kick in the chest, right?
Mm.
And it's like, because that's not the person I wanted to be. It's not the person who I told my grandmother I am. It's not the person who everyone else knows me to be. But with my intimate relationships, that's exactly who I was.
Yeah.
And um, it's hard to say because in my power exchanges, in my relationships, um, where I'm at now, it's like that's non-existent. I can't because it does something intuitively. It's like not intuitively, but in my body. I had
Mm.
a former submissive, former slave, who essentially those are two different levels of commitment to each other. I look at them both as master students. I don't ever like master slave just sounds cool on paper, but at the end of the day, it's a student, but it's a student both ways. So anyway, when I met her, she was married, and she's still married to this day. And when we connected, and as our relationship got more physical, I kept checking in with her. Do I have your consent? Do I have your consent? In my mind, I didn't even check in to see if she had asked her husband. She said yes, so I left it at that. I didn't dig in. I knew I needed to dig in, but I didn't.
Mhm.
Right. And it's like that was me circumventing morals with ethics. As long as I have your consent, I don't need his consent.
I
Yeah,
see.
you do. Yeah, you do. It's like energetically, yeah, you do. And it boils back down to what is the right thing to do. Not what is the right thing for me, the individual, but what is the right thing to do, and build from there. Because anything built on a broken foundation is just going to fall apart, like every time.
Yes, yes. And that perception that you have that you can tell that something is not being explained clearly, like that feels when I imagine kind of being there in that moment with you as you describe it, it's like that's part of the domination energy or role that you can say, no, 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 that's not the true answer.
100%, 100, and that was my responsibility. And then I didn't step up to the plate. Actually, that was as my last relationship was falling apart with the cancellation. Right, I had it's wild, right? Because this is actually my first time thinking about how they all ran parallel to each other. It was like I was too exhausted to do the right thing.
Mm,
Right? I was too tired of losing everything.
mm.
Wow,
I just felt how many people might resonate with that statement you just made. Yeah.
that's a tough one. That's a tough one. And it's like there's I'm a human being, right? And it's not like I am looking for this is all my battle. Like these realizations, this is everything I've got to carry. Uh, the realization in it though is, will I make that same choice again? And it's like no, because we had to repair that foundation. And it looked like there's a book that she wrote called Surviving Master Joshua, the BDSM memoir of an unfaithful wife. And it's a really great read. It's a really great read. Uh,
This
and
is from your
we
student or your ex-partner?
from my former slave.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I have the copy here. It's a really great read. It's available on Amazon. Um, but it's like ultimately I had to make things right. I had to bring things back into alignment.
If you are a woman, I want you to know about the work I do when not speaking on this podcast, which is all about how to live from your embodied womanly presence for your health on all levels, as well as it being a feminine spiritual path in itself. And it has a way of effortlessly unlocking your unique gifts to be a voice for women in the way that you are called to do so. And this happens through a facilitated training called Women's Somatic Sovereignty Certification. It gives you the chance to restore your own female nervous system, which I specialize in, while gaining the skills to be an effective somatic professional supporting women to thrive. Come to one of my free workshops to know more about this. We have a fantastic community of women to learn and to grow with, which has been going strong since 2005. So see the links below this episode for more on certification training.
Ultimately, at the end of the day, I had her tell him what was going on, and he had to give the approval, and he did. But it wasn't until after we had the rupture,
Mm,
right? And it's like, what does that do for me, for the person I say that I am?
mm.
And it's tough, man. It's just as long as I acknowledge what I've done and I change my behavior.
So while it can be truly therapeutic and empowering to understand really conscious communication and consent and boundaries and have everything more clear than what people would do in regular dating, or much more clear. And these are really valuable things that people can learn in the BDSM realm. While that's true, alongside that, it's such an edgy terrain that you can be
Hmm.
skating on thin ice moment to moment almost. And so I imagine it calls you constantly to feel, are you in your congruency with yourself in
100%.
yeah,
100%. The absence of mentorship, right? That's something that I think has died out in community because there's the internet. So everyone knows everything. Everyone's a master, everyone's a mistress, everyone's the best slave in the world because
mm,
they got something off the internet. I had posted something about edge play on Instagram a few weeks ago, and all these people were irate because I said, consider anything you do for the first time edge play because you have no idea how your body's going to respond to something. And they were so adamant that it was wrong, that it was like, no, but it's got to be dangerous things. And it's like, I am not, I cannot tell a person what's dangerous for them. Only they can tell what's dangerous for them. They know their edges. I don't know their edges. They were like, how can a blindfold be edge play? It was like, well, let's say maybe they've been in a situation where they were forced to be blindfolded, or
totally.
they have claustrophobia issues, or they have restraint issues. It's like it brings up a lot. It's not just the definition says, there's also the subjective relationship to it, right? So
Yes,
it comes down to BDSM and kink as well. It's like for people who are curious about this, mentorship is very important, but also education. Whether you
mm,
want to be the most submissive sub, where you want everything done to you, go out there and learn the kinks that you're curious about. Go take classes because the lights are up, the music's down, if any. You can ask your questions. Should you feel uncomfortable, you can stop everything, and the instructor will come over and help. Right? It's like you don't have to go into these spaces blind. I understand the appeal behind it, and the risk for harm or making the mistake sooner happened as well. I jumped into the deep end of the pool myself, right? And I know this because I went there. With that being said, mentorship, make sure they're not trying to have sex with you. Like it's like, what is it? This comes back to this leadership idea, or in spiritual spaces, like, what do we look out for? How do we know this person's safe? If the person allows you to ask questions, if the person allows you to stay autonomous, if the person allows you to change your mind, anything that helps you stay present and grow and feel seen and heard, awesome. Anything that diminishes, if they're negating you for your questioning, if they punish you for having doubt, for not praising them or going to other spaces to learn, anything that takes away your potential of growth, red flag.
yes,
Right? And sometimes, only because I can't say always, right? Sometimes they need to have it pointed out because they don't see it themselves.
absolutely. Yeah, and that's the
So there's
care that's integral to doing it well, isn't it? And in terms of, as you say, on the internet, it's across industries that people feel like, or they're told actually, that they need to project an image of themselves of expert status when they're just freaking beginning whatever the hell it is that they do. And when it comes to the polarity concepts, intimacy, relating, masculine, feminine, masculine being the leader and the man taking the lead. And so when we just have literal words that people are hiding behind and others are interpreting and imposing on themselves, like they should fit into this box, they should fit into this mold, and they just assume that they know how to do it. And what I see going on is that people are yeah, just filling themselves with polarity concepts, not realizing how much residue of other programming is already inside of them. And this is something that I've been talking about online. You know, I'm calling them patriarchy coaches because they are not polarity coaches. They can't distinguish the difference of misogyny and masculinity. You know, and to me, this is basic stuff, but it is not basic stuff to a lot of people out there. And I personally know quite a lot of women that have felt damaged, harmed, psychologically manipulated by men playing with these pseudo-spiritual terminologies and, you know, creating like real life off the internet relationship dynamics and just all kinds of tangles people get themselves into and then need to learn how to get out of it based on, yeah, disembodied learning to me. Like it's disembodied polarity teachings. Because when the
Yeah,
real thing is felt in our bodies, to me, that the true dynamic of dominant, submissive is something so humbling when it's done well. You know, it's an ego death rather than an ego inflation. And
I really like that. Yeah.
a lot of this gets lost. So I'm sure you've seen these communications online. Like, tell us about how you perceive those. I'd love to hear.
So when it comes to online personas and the speak, what I tell people, because for myself, I hate talking about BDSM and I hate talking about sex. It's like to me, those are a byproduct of great connection. I don't
Mm,
care about what you went and bought. I don't care how many flogs. Like I want to know when you and I sit down, I want to hear about your life, your lived experience. I want to hear what governs you because I need to know if you're safe for me or not, right? I need to know if we're working on the same frequency.
yeah.
Uh, and then for me there's a process of connection. I give people enough time. I like to just say this one. I'll give you enough rope to either tie me up with or to hang yourself, right?
Yes.
And I do that by giving a person time. I just want to see who you are. I want to see who you are and what drives you as a person. Because if I invest into you, it's going to be my time, my body, and my resources. And I don't want it to go to someone who's ungrateful, who's self-serving. I give it to purposes that are greater than my own.
Mm,
Meaning, I work with an organization called All Kings, and they help men reframe their relationship with masculinity and become contributing members of society. They focus primarily on those impacted by the justice system or formerly incarcerated. You got my support. You need me, call me, I'm there. There was another person who was hosting events downtown and they needed help and they called. And the minute we got in their car, to the minute we got to their space, to the time we got upstairs, all they did was bitch and complain. And they pointed fingers and they managed and they didn't put any effort in. And it's
mm,
like, I won't allow that to happen again. Right. So it's like I had to do an inventory with how am I treating myself? And when am I disrespecting myself and why? And scenarios like pursuit of knowledge, going into spiritual spaces where the guru may be an asshole like that. It's like, well, I'm going to extract myself from here now because I don't want to be an emotional punching bag. And I've done my parallel to that is going into kink spaces to learn from other kinksters who who project from or teach from a certain lens of ivory tower or my way is the way. And it's like, no, dude, listen, I'm here to learn. I'm here to learn. I'm here to absorb, but don't like allow me to discern what works for me and what doesn't. Uh, so it's like the development with autonomy
mm.
and really building my vocabulary so that I can communicate my needs a lot more directly. has been game changing. And that's what another thing that kink spaces provide is the space to communicate, to learn how to say yes and no, uh, and to develop language so that I'm able to say a bit easier what it is that I'm looking to connect on or share.
I want to highlight something that really stood out to me in what you shared then, because in my own words, you're articulating a point of orientation inside that is rooted in self-respect and self-esteem, and often this is missing for people. And so the dynamic they're trying to create with someone else is to compensate for the fact that they don't have that rootedness embodied to begin with that you just spoke about.
So a question that comes to mind is how do I create self-respect? How do I develop that? Hmm. One of the things for myself is external validation, right?
Mm,
Is necessary to a degree. Uh, Doing this, and I'm gonna come back to the men's work, doing this men's work, going into these spaces, sharing what I've shared, holding space as I've held and had space held for me, and doing this over and over and over and over. To be seen by other men that are doing it is very different than someone on the street saying, "Oh, well, great job, you're doing great." It's like you have
yes,
no idea what's going on in here. And the self-respect part comes in. It came in from the effort of doing shadow work. Shadow work meaning addressing the things and talking about the things I don't want to talk about that sit right back here because they're shameful or they hurt my feelings or I get angry when I think about it. When I do it proactively, it allows me to address it without myself being triggered into it. It allows me to find ways to reflect on it as a 47-year-old Joshua versus 7-year-old Joshua. My
mm,
logic is different, my lived experience is different, my understanding is different. So I can really take apart what I'm looking at a lot differently. And doing this personal work, having deep, meaningful conversations. When I meet people out there who aren't doing it, it's like, well, what the fuck are you doing with your time? And it's like we're not the same type of person. Now, the responsibility of this awareness though is to have the conversations with those who aren't ready as an invitation out into a deeper conversation because maybe they just needed a hand into it. But I won't know that unless I try. And sometimes they bite and sometimes they don't. And if they're not ready to have it, I'll see you
yeah.
next time.
Yes, yes. Um, it's a really good point that you first started saying as well around we need external validation to an extent, and I think there's an understanding of empowerment of not needing that, and that is also true. But in order to forge the real thing of, uh, not mastering, but just acquiring skill and confidence, even. Um, we do need leadership, we do need mentorship. And like you said, it's very different to have reflection from peers or teachers to help you see where you're at. And I think that step can often be skipped when people are getting ahead of themselves. Um,
Big time. Big
yeah,
time. In any arena. In any arena.
yes, exactly, exactly. And from my somatic orientation, it's the introception, the felt sense of where one is internally. So beneath the level of thought of any level of mind into a direct instinctual body connection and like the rootedness of self-respect coming from a very internal place, but also that is present in external expression, and that reflection of you've got it or you're going the right way or something like that can be, yeah, heard and felt on the outside.
Yeah. As you're sharing, self-respect looks two ways. It's like the confidence and the knowing of whatever is happening, right? It's like, yeah, I know this information. And the other side of that is saying, I don't know. And that's a level of confidence that a lot
That's
of people like I see them struggle with is I don't know. There's so much power in that. and so much release that it's like now I can go figure it out, but I don't have to pretend.
Yes, yes. This flexibility in your mind is something I really appreciate because, you're Master Joshua, you have all the experience that you have. And yet, you get it that when you have that openness to learn and to want to know more, and for that to be kind of an eternal curiosity or openness, that is the realm of mastery.
Thank you. Thank you. One of the biggest compliments I've gotten was around, it was funny, it started off as an insult from somebody. I was at a home at a friend's house in Pennsylvania. She's a mistress. And she was doing a class, and I was there to speak at the class. And this new woman there, she goes, "Why is he called master? I'm not going to call him master." And I laughed. I said, you don't have, no one's going to call me master. Like, this is just how it was introduced. And Miss Lady, she goes, "The reason why he's master, he's got the honorific as master, and he's recognized that is because he's put his time in education, he's taught classes, he's mentored people, he's built his technical proficiency. He's been doing this for like," and she just laid it off one after the other, after the other, after the other. And I'm like, oh God damn, girl. It was like it was really cool to because it's about the time in, right? It's
Mm,
like my if I'm now this is the other side of it. Anyone can call themselves whatever they want. That's what the part of the lifestyle is about you. I meet you where you're at. Understanding though, if you come in with the word master, you're going to be expected to know and behave a certain way
mm.
all the time because it's like, if you say that's who you are, I'm going to believe you. And then that person sets the first impression, right? So it's like, it could be a horrible first expression or a first impression, or it could be a fantastic first impression. And then that's what people carry with them moving forward. Oh, here comes those leather people, or oh my God, the leather people are coming, right? So it's like it's all very important how a person shows up.
Yes, yes. And coming to that distinction of patriarchy and polarity and misogyny and masculinity, I mean, I'm sure you witnessed as a younger boy or younger man about men who misuse their power. And I'd just love to hear you talk about how you recognize that is going on and a transition that you may have noticed yourself go through around that.
You know, it's funny. Growing up, I didn't like my father loved me. He was a provider. He was always busy doing the thing. There wasn't a lot of emotional intimacy.
Mm,
It's just he was doing what he was taught to do.
yeah.
And I grew up in East Harlem. I'm Latino. It's a predominantly black neighborhood. And I got to see, and it was during the crack epidemic, right? So I got to see a lot of what men aren't. My relationship with masculinity was framed, my relationship with what it meant to be a man was framed by my grandmother, who I spent a lot of time with when I was very young. And she taught me about how a gentleman behaves and the woman walks on the inside of the street. It's like to be a good man is what she taught me. And
Yeah.
that was my waypoint. Anything that contradicted is what I wanted to get away from. Anything that supported, like my heroes growing up was like Malcolm X and Spider-Man, right? My father was always working. We had deans in the school. We had a few good role models, but there was more examples of what I didn't want to be than there were of what I did. And so I was winging it just like what I thought I had to do, to figure it out myself. I started working at 14. I moved out, I think, by the time I was 16 or 17. And I joined the Marines at 18, and then I was gone.
Mm,
And I pursued masculine type of work because I was a fighter. I was fighting over the color of my skin since I was 5, right? And when people talk about male privilege or white privilege, depending on who you ask.
Yeah.
It's like my life is built on vigilance.
Wow.
I've been fighting since I was 5. It's like hypervigilance is my masculine superpower. It's like that's not a way to live. That's
Wow.
survival mode. There's no place to dump my emotions because I didn't even know where that was until my late 30s. And men suffer, what I've learned in these spaces is boys suffer in different ways. The sexual assault happens, the violence happens, the domestic violence happens. All of it happens to the boys too, except they're not allowed to cry. They're not allowed to feel. They're not allowed to insert whatever. It's like you're just here to provide and you're here to work. And you're only as good as what you can provide. And then on top of that, for the last 20 years, every man's toxic, right? So imagine being a boy born into this, where you're just wrong just because you have a penis. And it's like, what does that mean? There's no hope. And it's sad to hear what some of these guys share because it's by design, right? I think it's by design.
Tell me more about that.
So
Please know that whether you are a man or a woman or a couple listening in to this podcast, you are welcome to get in touch about private mentoring, where I can personally support you to unlearn patriarchal sex, to establish yourselves together in the beyond, which is the most natural yet evolutionary way of exploring intimacy together, increasing the pleasure, the love, the fulfillment that you get to have as man and woman. Whether you're beginning this journey or whether you're already quite advanced, you're welcome to talk with me on a free connection call to see whether a confidential, private mentoring process is right for you. You can find the connection call links in the show notes.
getting us away from the village and more into the nuclear family. My uncles used to punish me and then send me to my dad or my mom, and then they punish me for being an asshole kid, right? Like whenever I stepped out of line, we don't do that anymore. There's no accountability that's happening. There's
Mm.
no social relationships. There's no mentorships. There's no elders. You can't talk to my kid that way. Well, your kid's a fucking asshole, right? It's like everyone wants to blame everyone else for the raising of their children. It's like that's there's no accountability and no personal responsibility, and it's only getting worse because and it's celebrated. I also think that the breakdown of the single family homes, single parent homes, is detrimental to children.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Like, however, because I'm also writing a book on the Bible, on Genesis
Really?
specifically, yeah, and it's about the frameworks that are in the Bible. And what I've learned about the patriarchy is this: the reason why it's based on the patriarchy is because the men are the first line of defense. The men are the ones who have to put their bodies on the lines. Now, what the book also shows is what happens when men fail to show up every single time. The women are the ones who take the brunt of it. The kids are the ones, the families, the community are the ones who pay for the men unable to show up responsible.
Mm.
And it's every time. It's in all the stories, right? And maybe a couple of them, it's this is what happens when he does show up, right? It's like it's a different path, but it's like the men are responsible to show up in all this process around masculinity, though. It's like, well, what's a man? And that's a topic that a lot of people they don't want to touch. It's like, well, my answer is this: you can have been born a boy and grew up into adulthood, or you can be born a girl and grew up into adulthood and choose to step into the role of what society expects from a man. Meaning, if I'm going to say I'm a man, I'm going to show up as a man. I better behave and perform like a man. Well, what does that mean? Responsibility, accountability, dependability, transparency, truth, like all of these things that are expected. But we're not always going to bat 1,000, right? So it's like, what do we do when we drop the ball?
Mm.
How are we bouncing back into repair so that you can be a person of your word? But until you can do that consistently, where you're making the right call over and over and over, and you're making the sacrifice and you're showing up as society needs you, until you can do that, you're not a man yet. You're just a guy. You're just a guy who's trying to be a man, who hasn't gotten the awareness to say, wait a second, I need to make different choices because people are paying for me, my choices, and they're self-serving. But without that awareness, there's no direction to go,
Mm.
right? So I think it's also men's responsibility to pull the guys up and say, listen, I need you to show the fuck up
Yes.
because look at the chaos you're creating. I needed that, and I didn't have that. Being
Yeah.
canceled is what put me in that position, and it shouldn't
Wow.
have gotten that far.
Mm.
I should have been corrected long time before, but I was doing like everyone else is doing. It's just figuring this shit out on the fly.
Yeah. Yes. And as it's been discussed a bit in this podcast already, there are in collective awareness, there's some similarity in awareness of racism, awareness of patriarchy. And, at an academic level, I believe it's been found that people have an easier time recognizing their racism than they do their patriarchy. And
Mhm.
it's something that's being unpacked in real time right now. And while I say that, I'm a huge advocate for masculinity and, men being men and in the way that is natural to them. So if anything, I just want to help differentiate misogyny from masculinity, not to put any kind of negativity whatsoever onto masculinity. But like you said before, with those 10 people in the room, if one person can't see who the asshole is, it's probably them. And that's how I feel around men who say that patriarchy doesn't exist, right?
Yeah, it's evident, right? It is the framework. It's the framework. It's like it's evident.
Yeah.
Uh, I don't want to let that cat out of the bag yet. With this book that I'm writing, I have a variation to it that I'm going to write, but you'll be one of the first ones to know. I don't want to let that cat out of the bag yet because it's game changing on. I left religion years and years and years and years ago because it was like if you can't prove it to me, I'm not going to believe it. But my
Hmm.
relationship with faith changed through my journey into BDSM because of trust. What does it
Mm.
mean to build trust? And I took a photo of my former sub, and in a slave position. And when I saw it, I'm like, man, Jim has a lot of faith in me, man. He trusted I'll always do what's right for him. And I said, who else has a lot of faith like that? I said, religious people. And then these doors opened in my brain. And for 5 minutes, I sat there, well, what do I believe? And I believe in karma. I believe karma is what governs. Like I've seen it happen in real time. And it's like, So then I had to start reverse engineering my belief systems to see, well, where do I land? And I think that's also a very significant part in the human experiences, understanding what you believe to be true, whether it's science or whether it's a sky daddy. It's like, what, figure it out because that's where your permissions and forgiveness lives. That's where mine did. And then from there, I was able to start building my relationship with self-respect and self-value
Mm.
because I had accountability now that I could hold myself to for my behaviors. Because back then I felt invisible anyway. It doesn't matter what I do because insert reason. And it was like, that's not true. Everything I do matters. And and I have to live that way.
Okay, so when you experience yourself being part of a greater whole rather than just a cut-off individual where, if you let things slide, nothing else matters and you feel disconnected from how every single little thing is intricately woven in together. And when you see yourself as part of that, you hold yourself to a higher level of accountability. Is that right?
100%. 100%. I need like there was one time I was at Home Depot I was there to get some chain. It was like $2 and something cents. And they were supposed to write the SKU on the paper, but they wrote the number down wrong. It was like 7:30 in the morning. The lady's like, just go ahead and take it. Don't worry about it. So I looked at her and I said, are you sure? She said, yeah, just go ahead. So I walk out the store and I make a left and I'm walking towards the edge of the property line. I'm like, ah. So I run back inside. I get the SKU number and I go pay with a different cashier because I believe it, right? I believe, and it reflects in my relationships, right? 'Cause
Mm,
it's all boils down to relationships. That's to me, that's the whole point. I'm here to witness and be witnessed to other human beings through this amazing roller coaster called suffering, also known as life.
I
Right? And it's like,
appreciate that real life example. Josh, you revealed today where you've struggled with integrity in your role as a dom and as a partner in your personal life. And you've faced this version of yourself and you've chosen to transform this. And I would just love to hear from the inside of your mind, your experience. How does it feel when you are really operating from congruency, from integrity in the dominant role, officially in that moment, in that role? What are you orientated by? How does that feel to you in the moment when it's not about an unhealthy power over from manipulation? It's a big question.
yeah, a time comes into mind. Responsible is the
Mm,
first word that comes to mind. Responsible, and blessed with responsibility. Maybe that's better, right? Because it's like I'm entrusted and I'm walking this person through the dark
yeah,
and I'm guided because I'm doing what's right.
yeah.
There was a gentleman I was working with once years ago who he was married in an abusive relationship for 30 plus years to a woman. Once they got divorced, he's gay and he was going down that road. And when I met him, he was really, really angry at women. And we would sit and we would talk, and he ended up meeting my partner, Kat, and like we worked through this hate, this anger, same anger I had, just in a different form. And it was like at the end of we ended up doing a scene, and it was like a big impact scene, a lot of flogging, a lot of this. It was very transcendental, like very, very intentional, cathartic. But by the end of it, he was crying on the floor, and I was holding him, and I swear it felt like the sun of the light was shining down from the sun onto us because of the vulnerability and the pain that he let go there.
Wow.
And it's like I felt held by the universe.
Mm.
And that's why I say that that level of responsibility, being blessed with that level of responsibility, because we talk about the things, but then when we go into the space to do the things, it's like it's really incredible.
I really love and respect this way of coming to relationship with the divine through your body, through direct experience, as opposed to something that's imposed as just a set of beliefs that you're trying to live by, like a direct relationship with divine light in that instance that you just described from a place of gnosis somatically. I really love that.
I think it actually starts in the first conversation. The moment that container is created and the person feels safe, I think that's the introduction to divinity. It's
Mm,
like that in and of itself is where healing gets to start. When a person can go, this is what I needed to say,
mm,
and just witness a person tell their truth. Everything else is a byproduct off of that.
mm. Joshua, what does responsibility feel like in your experience in the moment when it's very present?
Caretaking is the first thing that comes to mind. It's responsibility is going to land on a spectrum. Like there's responsibilities for all types of everything. What comes to mind is when something is heavy, when someone's really fucking crying, or they're really processing and releasing a lot of grief or agony. It's like the responsibility is to stay tight, to hold that container strong, and to keep eye on what's happening, to keep witnessing what's happening. Responsibility is about validating and keeping safe,
Mm,
right? Keeping safe through the process and validating the process at the same time.
mm. When I hear you say that, it sounds like a way of describing being in power with, even though there's a very clear dynamic of the direction of power in the moment, the care that you described. And this is remarkably different to, like, if I energetically transport myself into that scenario where a man is, there was this post recently about, and there was an image that went with it of a woman kneeling down and, just appealing to indulge his ego in a way that's hollow, and when I sense into the version of a man doing that, he is so big, he's becoming so inflated in himself that that subtle, acute awareness of care and connection that you're describing, it can't enter the space, it can't be in the forefront of his awareness when he's got himself in view, right? And there's something very hollow about that because it's not power with, it's power over, power under. And of course, there is an obvious dynamic of that in BDSM, say, but energetically, it's togetherness. Yeah, it's actual
Yes.
unity that you're striking.
Yeah. Yeah. As you say that, like my slave Natalie, she like there when we play, there is but if you were looking at it from the outside, that's what you would see, right?
Right.
It's like, oh my goodness. But the power with that's happening, the negotiations, the discussions, the ability to change your mind in the middle of it, like that's where the power with is. So for folks who don't have a lot of experience, when you do go into these spaces and you are watching and something does get uncomfortable, you may not have all the information on what they're doing and how they got there. My biggest suggestion is don't approach them at that point. Ask them later, after they're done playing, after they're done hugging and getting grounded again. And when the person goes to get the person who was receiving water, after they're done with all of that hugging and cuddling, as they're about to move and move around, then you can approach. But until then, treat it like a formal dance, because that's ultimately what it is.
Mm, yes. Yes, and to be real, a lot of people really are learning about the basics of power, how to hold power, feel powerful, wield power, and to do it in a way that is congruent with self, that is in integrity, truly with someone else's well-being. It takes a lot of practice. And so it's okay to not know, and it's okay to learn. And you have a community where, where this someone's experiencing, how do I be truly safe in a submissive role? Or how do I be really in integrity in the domination or leadership role? I believe you offer support teaching for both. Is that true?
Yeah, so I'm co-founder of the Kink Collective. It's an organization that started about 8 years ago. And what we do is we help people reframe their relationship with sexuality, sex, and kink as a from one area. But it's really about learning how to establish boundaries and develop deep, meaningful connections, where the kink is the byproduct of the relationship building. And that's done through different forms. We do one-on-one work, where it either be with myself, with Kat, or with Natalie. And the idea behind that is, where are you? and where do you want to be, and what are the roadblocks in the way, and how do you approach them so that you can navigate them, because that's what's preventing you from getting to where you want to be. If it's in relationships, if it's in intimacy, if it's in your relationship with your body, if it's trying to get a deeper understanding of sex and sexuality, ultimately it bleeds out all over your life, because what we're teaching is how do you find your vocabulary and how do you say what you need?
Mm.
Because when a person feels seen and heard for the first time, it could really shake the ground. Like, I've seen people get upset and they want to go home and divorce their family, like their partner, because all these years you've not heard what I've been meaning to say. And now I feel seen, and it's very empowering. So doing this type of work is, there has to be a level of responsibility as well. Um, for myself, I work with men and women very similarly along the same lines. Mine in particular is around what a person's belief system is and removing limiting beliefs. Like, what do you believe about yourself that's no longer true? Was it ever true? Who taught you that? And it's like really dissecting and ultimately becoming the person that you know you can be.
Mm. Yeah, that radical honesty exploration is there's so much aliveness in that. And obviously the world that you're in and the Kink Collective is a place someone could just be totally immersed in and living this lifestyle. Or I imagine they could explore it and experience it just to learn deeper about leadership, about domination, submission, boundaries, communication, because this really is the realm that has more articulation and more clarity on those things than relationship therapy, for example. So
Yeah.
while it might be
It's
really
encouraged.
right. So it might be really edgy for some people. And, I didn't even say the basic things that this is not all about just pain, because that's the first thing that people tend to be afraid of, isn't it?
Yeah. And the other thing is, pain is relative too, right? It's like the mind always goes to the worst case scenarios all the time. Like, my favorite is, are you into punching? And then someone will say, no, no, I don't like to be punched in the face. It's like, no, 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 no. I go, have you ever had a massage? And nine out of 10 times they'll say yes. And I'll ask, well, do this to your thighs or your butt? And I'm, oh my God, I loved it. Well, that's punching. The issue is, if you've experienced domestic violence or serious physical assault, this closed-handed strike could be a trigger for you.
Yes.
And that introduces a bad time. But if you don't have enough information, you're going to miss out on a lot of things because of the fear of the worst case scenario.
Yes. Yes. And whether it's emotional things, psychological things, sexual things in say, a regular conventional sex relationship, there's so much suppression and hiding from these things and not being open and honest in the intimate communication and just kind of dealing with it. So yeah, I really feel like there's a value for everyone, at least one time to um,
Everybody's into something. Everyone's into something. It's just, do I feel safe enough to share it? And if not, why not?
yeah. And if you don't with the person that you're with, what's going on there?
Exactly. Exactly. Like, I can go down this whole other rabbit hole around polyamory and open relationships and stuff, but that's a slippery slope for me. It's ultimately, you're not going to find your answers outside if you can't have the adult conversations inside.
Totally, totally. So, the Kink Collective, this is something that is a group experience.
So the Kink Collective, we started off as a leather family. Essentially, when I had the big breakup with my ex, um, some people stayed, some people went. But ultimately, the energy of the space is, the philosophy is people before kink. You are who you are before what you're into. And it's about equality, people having voice, people having agency, and really having a space to let their hair down so that they can really learn how to ask for what they want. Over time, that's evolved into, now we do a lot of online education. We do one-on-one work. We have a mentorship program called the Conscious Kinky Partner that we're taking signups for. We have an in-person weekend intensive in New York City that's called Transformation Through Kink. And it's about learning how to establish deep relationships pretty quickly based off of the format that I was doing as a professional dominant. I need to be able to sit with you and establish a real connection within minutes. And what's that process? And we have these frameworks. We have a podcast online on Spotify and YouTube. It's called
Great.
it's called the Conscious Kinky Podcast. We have a tie-in discussion call on Tuesday nights where we dissect the questions from the podcast in breakout rooms on a community level. And we're looking to start one during the weekend, during the daytime, so our folks in Europe can join as well. Because we have a lot of people, they stay up till 1, 2, 3 in the morning to join the group. And it's
Wow.
like we want to get some daytime hours for those guys too. So now essentially what the Kink Collective is Kink is the avenue in which people get here. The people being emotionally mature and curious around their relationship with vulnerability and intimacy. And at the end of the day, they're looking to learn how to establish safe relationships because app culture, hookup culture, like there's a lot of shit out there that doesn't support people wanting deep, meaningful connection. It's like they're playing the slot machine of dopamine and it's short-lived. People aren't learning how to establish relationships. Actually, what I think is going to happen is if you look at the gay community with the sexual liberation, they did it, they knocked it out. However, 50 years later, they don't know how to establish relationships because all they've been doing is fucking for
Right.
decades.
Right.
And a lot of the guys that I worked with are older gay men who are single and they're afraid. And it's like, well, we need to learn how to establish connections again.
Yes, Joshua. And I'm just thinking right now as well about the people who might be like, well, this is interesting, but Joshua's world is not for me or whatever. The thing is, we all require safe relationships. And even someone who's not experiencing kink and BDSM, if you really honestly ask your partner, do they feel that they are in a safe relationship all the time with you? And this is where it could get interesting.
Yeah, yeah. BDSM is only for me, it's the framework. I don't shout it from the rooftops. Like I don't run around. Sometimes I do run around in my leather, but it's not, I don't, I've actually so I've been doing a lot of diving into neglect and body self-awareness and sensory. And what I shared earlier about the reason a lot of the pain that I've introduced into my life is because of my inability to tell the truth when I needed to. I have a belief that I'm going to start working on that a lot of people who pursue the journey of BDSM and kink have things that they need to talk about that they haven't talked about. And that's a way for them to get back in touch with their body because of the disconnect. And that's
Yeah.
very real. Now, not everyone is doing it because some people, like anything else, they're looking for stimulation. They're looking to just feel alive as a coping mechanism. But you could do that with dancing. You could do that with sex. You could do that with swinging. You could do that with fucking jumping out of airplanes. BDSM seems to be for some people.
Sure.
And for others, it's about returning to agency, being able to ask for what I want because it was
Yes.
taken from me. So that's the
Yes.
other side of the spectrum.
Yes.
Right?
You
And at the end of the day, none of it is necessary. If the whole goal for me is helping people establish relationships that are safe for them.
I love that you have that focus and, your warmth, your honesty, your desire to help people establish safe relationships. This is the resonance that I felt from you, with you from across the world. So thank you so much for coming and sharing with everyone. I really appreciate your time and energy, Joshua.
I've really enjoyed myself, and I'm very thankful for the time that we got to chat. So thank you so much.
Thank you for sharing this episode with someone you know. And your comments and your podcast review, they're really impactful in helping more people to become part of this collective inquiry. So keep tuning into Beyond the Patriarchal Spell for much more to come, so we can all be part of shifting division into understanding and connection for ourselves and for the coming generations.